Athletes, take your mark. Get set. It's time for the Addict to Athlete podcast. Everybody out there, Coach Blu Robinson. Hey, thank you so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. We greatly appreciate you doing so. And hey, if you got an opportunity, jump onto our website, addicttoathlete.org. You'll find all of our content, information about addiction recovery resources, our calendar of upcoming events, and so much more. You can jump on there and find all kinds of links and stuff that you can share with your friends and family, anyone who's struggling with addiction or mental health issues. We'd love to have you jump on addicttoathlete.org and reach out to us if you have any further questions. And again, I want to thank everybody for participating in the Addict to Athlete fundraising drive with our Project Elf for Christmas this year. We've been doing great. There's still a time and abilities to donate if you would like to. And you can find all of that information on our social media outlets. Athletes, today I got a great guest that we've convinced to come onto the podcast. We bumped into her and one of her colleagues a couple of weeks ago when we were at the Global Exchange Addictions Conference in Florida, and she was singing our tune. And so we decided to jump into her presentation and fell in love with what they're doing with the population in addiction recovery. But specifically, this is Nicole Golden, who, Nicole, you've got lots of acronyms and letters behind your name. We're going to put all this in the show notes, but would you mind introducing yourself to Addict to Athlete and tell us a little bit about why you and how you got started working in physical agility strength training with people in addictions?
Hi, I'm Nicole Golden. I own a studio in Sayre, Pennsylvania called FWF Wellness. So a lot of this is myself and my team. I have a master's degree in exercise science with a concentration in sports nutrition. I am also an NASM Master Trainer, NSCA Strength and Conditioning Specialist, a sports nutritionist, and corrective exercise specialist. And we'll keep it at that for now. I love it.
That is awesome.
I love learning, so there are a couple more, but I figure that's enough.
That is fantastic. Yeah, well, when we get too many letters behind there, people just kind of fade away. But really, all that really does mean is that you have an incredible background on seeing kind of what we've seen on Team Addict to Athlete, which is helping people utilize movement, physical agility, strength, nutrition, all these things to really holistically approach addiction in a way that I think has been overlooked for many decades. So tell us a little bit about your start in the addiction recovery world. Why did you get drawn to it? And, we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And I'm a very honest person, so I'm going to be very real as to what drew me to this. I'm the child of two addicts. My sister is also an addict and has severe mental illness, so I am the only one in my family. I've never used drugs and alcohol personally. My father committed suicide in 2018 and lost his battle to addiction. So back in 2016, I was approached by my local YMCA to see if I would be willing to teach a fitness class at a drug and alcohol rehab facility. And this was an inpatient facility. It was the first one in our county, believe it or not, because we live in a very rural area. All the other instructors said absolutely not. There was a lot of stigma. They were sort of afraid to go in there. And I said, you know what? I've grown up around this. I'm very passionate about helping people in addiction. I'll give it a try. I walked into that rehab center, and as much as I'd been a personal trainer and fitness professional for a while, I was not prepared for what I saw. There were people with all different needs, all different stages coming out of detox. And then remember, this is a 28-day program, so they're literally going there, coming right out of their addiction. And I was like a deer. I was like this. I was like, oh my God. Okay, it's professional, but I don't know if I can handle this. But I did it. And over time, every time I would go, I had a once-a-week class. I would teach Pound Fitness. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Pound, but it has drumsticks, rock music. And I didn't know if I was really making a difference going in there, but then the counselors would come up to me. They said, do you know that this is the only time that the patients smile when you're in this facility?
Brilliant.
And the owner of the facility said, will you be our wellness director? We want to have a fitness program, which I thought is very innovative. Because most recovery centers don't have a fitness program. They may have a treadmill, piece of equipment here and there, but they don't have like a guided program. So 5 years down the road from that, myself and my team, I trained them on how to go in there. And a lot of it was research and trial and error. What worked, what didn't work. Yeah. But after all of those years as a team, we figured out a structure for especially group fitness, what really worked. And then what we started to do was incorporate personal training clients into our facility that were in recovery from drug and alcohol. I have several. And then we sort of developed programs that worked really well that kind of fit into the AA program and recovery and everything for personal training, which is very, very different, both physiologically and psychologically from a general client. So in 2021, I was approached by a company called MedFit, and they would like a certification course for trainers to learn how to work with people in recovery. So I said, sure. I was in grad school at the time, and it was very, very challenging 8 months of collecting interviews, research, but we have this beautiful 12-hour course that is all of our experience in working with this population for 6 years. Literally, like everything.
That's amazing.
So a trainer can take it and they can walk right in and feel confident. So that's sort of
I love it. I love it.
That's my background, and
that's such a good thing because listeners, again, there's a lot of these kind of situational things that happen out of necessity, and I love the fact that when the opportunity came, Nicole, you didn't push away. That you're like, heck yeah, we're going to get in there because. Let's face it, addiction, it comes with a ton of stigma. And you guys are kind of on the East Coast. Now, we know a little bit here in the central United States and the West Coast, but the East Coast is getting hammered by addiction. I mean, I've had friends that live back there that say, Blu, it is insane out here. And I'm sure you're seeing just as many losses as you are victories. So when you started gathering, I don't know, some of just this emotional stuff that you have to say, hey, I'm going to now use my talents to help these folks overcome this by giving them something else to do. What did the collective like kind of think when you were doing this? Were you like, well, you're wasting your time, or they're not going to really get into it, or you're trying to help people that are going to get out there and get sick again? Why waste your time? Did you battle any of those kind of stigmas yourself?
Absolutely. Those stigmas, and then believe it or not, a lot of stigma from the recovery community because or even the professionals believe in exercise. They don't see it, or they don't have time for it. They don't realize that it is really such a powerful tool. So believe it or not, I've actually gotten more pushback from the professionals than I have from other people saying, oh, you're wasting your time. And for them,
no, it's true. You're right.
Now, counselors that have seen what happens with the patients and sees the improvement, they are believers. But until you kind of come there and show them that this can be done, you get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, we had the same thing here. In fact, our program is kind of designed as a community resource, and so and we have inpatient treatment centers that come here. But we had to battle the you're doing it wrong syndrome quite a bit with the stereotypical 12-step groups, which are fantastic and they work great, but there's 1,000,001 different paths to recovery. And so I'm sure that when you saw that and when you kind of got caught up in it, because of how determined you were, just to kind of show, hey, I can use my skill set to help these people, it doesn't bog you down. But my curiosity is, how did you begin to show and convince the professionals that there's something to this, to the point where they start seeing the value of it? Because we're not designed to be stationary. We're not supposed to just be sitting around. We're humans that are designed to move, right?
Yep. I think that it was just being there. And then when they saw the demeanor of the patients change, where some of them, they said that when we came, and we were coming there 4 or 5 times a week by this point, it just elevated their demeanor. They said that the patients participated in group sessions better. They were happier. They just... overall, just like their moods were better. And it was great when some of the counselors would do the classes with them. And that I would like to do more. Yeah. But those were the ones that were very, very convinced. And some of them were so convinced that they were really like sending people to us after they got out of rehab. We still have some clients that come that were in the rehab center.
I love it. So give me your personal thought on this, because when I started Addict to Athlete in 2011, I'm a therapist, right? I started this kind of as a group in my inpatient group meetings. I caught my athletes, a few of them, or my athletes then, my clients then were kind of, forging their 12-step sign-off sheet. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we don't like going to these meetings. That's all we had. So I created the team out of necessity. But again, here's a therapist now that's out in public running with clients, right? And the public at large wouldn't know. But I had to jump through some of those hoops too, of like, what is the licensing, state of Utah, Doppel going to think? And I had to go and ask them, is this okay? And it was funny because no one else was doing this kind of stuff. And it got me thinking, as a clinician, as a coach, kind of as a fellow human, there's a lot more we can do if we do it appropriately. I love the fact that you've got like counselors and stuff that jump in too. How important is it for you to see like that kind of genuine relationship being built where they may look at the degree on the wall and think, well, this guy's got, schooling under his belt. He can't relate to me, versus in the gym, lifting, running, doing this stuff together on the same playing field. Do you think it levels that kind of like human to human relationship? And
the whole thing with recovery is the human to human relationship is critical. It's absolutely critical. Yeah. The trauma, there's a lot of people don't really care about me, don't really know me, don't really want to invest in me. And the counselors doing it with them really, I felt was so, so critical. It's funny because when we go into the school environment, and this is sort of unrelated, but peripherally related, I try to get the teachers to do the workouts with the kids for the same reason. And also the counselors, a lot of them were addicts themselves. They're setting an example for their patients. They need to be setting that kind of example because, like you said, we're not meant to be stationary. We're not meant to, if they're showing healthy behaviors, then the patients are more likely to model those healthy behaviors.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Now, during your presentation, you talked a lot about some of the research that you've done. And in order for us to achieve some grant status, we had to do some deep dives in some research. But I'm curious, what are some of the ones that stick out to you that really kind of said, hey, this will work? You can connect this, to that. And that means that they can find like a foundation of recovery on this as they build their emotional investments in therapy. Like what are some of the ones that stand out to you the most that like you could really kind of like, hang your hat on, so to speak? What did you notice during your research on how exercise connects to addiction recovery?
Believe it or not, there's actually a lot of research out there. They're not hard. Yeah. There's so much research out there. So there's one, the meta-analysis and if you want any links to these original studies, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to share them. Wang et al. 2014 had a big study about which exercise programs people responded to. And this was a meta-analysis. So it took the findings of a whole lot of other studies. So this is where we developed our sort of pillars of a great program. That's fun, that's varied, that's professionally led, that they're tying to that peer support piece, and that's in person is actually really, really critical. But that research piece talking about that, believe it or not, higher intensity exercise and yoga were the ones that people seem to stick to the most. But the people in recovery that participated in exercise programs had significantly more abstinence from the substance days than people who did not complete these exercise programs. Another study that was done in 2015 by Stroutenberg and colleagues. And this study was really interesting because a lot of the time in recovery centers, they'll say, the clients don't really want to exercise. That was sort of proven to be untrue in this study. 70% of the people said that they wanted an exercise program, 70%. 76% asked for a diversified program, and 90% wanted a face-to-face peer-supported program, which was kind of cool. There's so many of these studies. So Brown et al. 2010 was another one of those landmark studies that took a group of people in recovery, and this was particularly from alcoholism was what they were looking at, but the findings are applicable to all drugs and alcohol, that the people who completed 75% of the exercise sessions were an average of abstinent for 6 weeks more than their counterparts who did not. And some of it, of course, going back to using the substance could have to do with the carryover after. So maybe they're not using the exercise after, but that was just the ones that completed the exercise program while inpatient. So there's tons of these studies. There was another one that looked at a walking and running program and proved that there was a significant increase in what we call self-efficacy. And that's sort of one's sense of self, belonging. You know this, you're a therapist. And that's something that lacks and is sort of the root to a lot of addiction is people lack self-efficacy. So being able to improve that with even just a walking program was huge. I could go on about this study.
I love it. I love it because, again, you got to, listeners, you have to understand that there's not a lot of mainstream programs that participate in this kind of stuff. And they take them to the gym, but then they're just kind of working out on their own. The clients themselves are kind of meandering around the gym, not knowing what to do. And so these kind of clinical approaches, they do have very deep and long lasting effects. And here's the thing that I've noticed, Nicole, is that there's a lot of stuff that we do that falls into those categories that you're talking about. But there's this like unmeasurable type participation, the things like, okay, so what keeps them coming back? We have a few people that have been here since our inception, that have been here 11 years plus. And it blows me away, because how do you measure that? Because we can measure the physical agility, we can measure the length of time, like away from their addiction and sober. But it's that what is it really? Is it the team connection? Is it the relationships? Is it because we do more than just exercise. We do a lot of community service and those kind of things. And like you said at the top of the podcast here, it's about those relationships. You mentioned something that really kind of got me like excited, because you talked about how when they count on you to be there, and if you don't show up, they feel it as a personal loss. How have you noticed that people that, again, society would throw away and say they can't build relationships? What have you noticed about how important showing up, being there, and building those relationships truly are?
That's probably the most critical piece. And that's why we were very successful with group exercise programs. But even in a one-on-one setting, knowing that your coach is going to be there and going to be there for you is really important. A lot of these people come from a place of trauma. They were tossed away when they were kids. I mean, how many people have you worked with in the past where that's the case? And a lot of addiction stems from that. And that's almost the piece that's missing. The beautiful thing about exercise is not only is it healthy and has all of those benefits, but you really have the ability to have your social group there with you. And that's what keeps people coming back. It's that knowing that their friends are going to miss them, that people care about them, that they have a group that feels that they're an important part of it. I mean, it's really just like any other human being. Don't we all want a sense of belonging? But again, this is a very vulnerable population that has significantly lacked that sense of belonging.
Absolutely. And I think when we look at it, listeners, and you look at, and I get this all the time, we do a lot of that kind of like running, exercising outside and stuff. And they all come in there and say, well, I'm not an athlete, or I'm not a runner, or I'm not a this or that. I'm not a CrossFit junkie or whatever. The funniest part about that is they say that because they've never tried. And you said that self-efficacy starts kicking in. They're like, well, if that person is doing it, maybe I can do it. Don't you just love watching that light switch on? Because literally, if you move, you will heal. And I've seen it with trauma. I've seen it. I do EMDR on the treadmills in the winter and outside during the summer. And what I've noticed is that as you're running and as you're working out, and as that heartbeat starts to get up there and that sweat starts to come, they start doing therapy without even knowing it. I mean, how many times have you been upset, just went for a walk or a run, and come back feeling amazing? Like, you're seeing this in real time. Do the clients you're working with, do they understand like, hey, all you have to do is keep doing this small part of your whole day, and these benefits will keep coming? It's
actually funny. We had one gentleman at the rehab center, and I won't forget this. So I'm not a yoga instructor, but Jen, my colleague, is a yoga instructor who was with me. And this gentleman had the shakes so bad from alcoholism. Just the yoga was the only time he could stop. And he actually kept the yoga habit going because he said that he actually was able to, even hours after completing the exercise program, the shaking stopped. What is that showing?
Wow.
So it was really important to him to keep doing it. But what we lack is on the other side of that. We need to have groups like yours that keep people coming, not just provide them with, oh, great, we have this great program in a rehab center, but now you're off on your own. It's that they need to see the benefits where they keep going. But yes,
yeah.
And it's not just psychological, but even physiologic. So we talked about this in the conference. What do we see with people who are alcoholics? Balance and coordination problems. We have tons of people with prior orthopedic injuries because 25% of trauma admissions to a hospital are related to drug and alcohol. So what else can we do? It's like, we can also make them feel better. We can make their injuries feel better. We can help their balance and coordination. We can help all of those pieces, which also will help them to feel more confident.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I've had so many clients that have come in and they've said like, oh, I can't do this because of an old back injury or whatnot. And the reason why they're there is because they become addicted to their pain medications and things of that nature. And the thing is once they start, tapering down with their doctor and start leaning into like a program like this, where they strengthen the parts of the body that needs to help, that have been kind of weakened during their kind of, compromising their back or whatever, they find that the pain's not as intense as they remember it because it's been covered for so long. And the neat thing about that too is they start to realize that, like, wait a minute, like, I'm only 40 years old and I feel like I have the back of an 80-year-old. a lot of that starts to get in your head too, because we're afraid of pain. And so I love this. What she's talking about too is like going into it systematically to where you're not in there just, benching as much as you can, maxing out. It's this gradual reawakening, if you will, of the body itself, being able to strengthen itself. And that you said create balance. Holy cow. I mean, substance use in and of itself wrecks that. But that's the other thing too, is once you start utilizing balance and you get that core going, it's amazing about what else kind of comes online, if that makes sense. Are you seeing that kind of stuff where people kind of like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I could feel this way.
Yeah, and that's where you see that increase in self-efficacy. And that's the other piece that's important, which you mentioned, sending people, like a lot of we can't just send people into a gym. We can't just say, yeah, good, there's your exercise program. They need somebody who's a professional to lead them, because otherwise you're setting them up for failure and you're not getting that benefit of, oh, wow, look what I can do. Another piece we like to do is have them look back on, hey, where were you 6 months ago? Could you, not just like necessarily lifting heavy, but could you move in that way? Did you have that much balance? It was coordinated. Were you able to do functional movements at home 6 months ago? And it's always tying it back to that self-efficacy, confidence, you belong mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your own life, you do this constantly. I mean, this is part of your profession, your career now. What have you noticed in the world of addiction recovery, specifically with, the difference between just the sit in a circle and talk about stuff versus these kind of, situations where you can get out and recreate and then, sit down and do that and then prepare yourself. What is your outcomes looking like? I mean, I know it's probably hard to put a number on there, but what are you personally noticing about, from client A who comes in and then leaves after the 30, 40, 60 days, whatever, versus, the ones that you've seen where they don't participate? What are you noticing just kind of as a professional eyes on this?
The ones who participate do better. Like they stay out, they find community activities, or, especially the ones that stay with us after, it gives them something to keep a nice, healthy routine. And that routine is so critical versus the people who don't. Part of it too is we need to tie this into you're taking care of your body. You were wrecking your body, now you're taking care of your body. So absolutely. And even if you look at the research studies, the people who carry on the exercise, even the ones who are just offered exercise and carry it on as a habit, do better, are less likely to relapse than people who do nothing. Just think about a general person and how they feel sitting around all day. All these sessions where you're sitting around in circles, they should be walking on treadmills together or you can still have your therapy, but be doing it in an active way.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then how much is this also critical when it comes to nutrition? Because the one thing I notice is that I can get a lot of the athletes that we work with, a lot of the people in addiction recovery, I can get them to train. I can get them to the gym. We can do these community races and all this fun stuff. But their diet, man, they have a hard time wrapping their heads around what goes in is going to fuel that body. Is that still a learning curve? And if so, how have you been able to kind of address that with them? Because, cross addicting with sugars and carbs and all that fun stuff, it's the best motivator to try and get you to quit is like to cut that stuff out. But it sucks. How do you wrap your head around that?
I actually have a client that struggles with that right now, who's an alcoholic, but now she has binge eating disorder. So that is a very common thing we see, especially with people who are addicted to stimulants, because they're looking for that sugar. We see a lot of people become obese or addicted to like sugar and food because they're replacing it. So what we try to do is get them to focus on other replacement behaviors like exercise and setting like fitness goals for them and always frame it in that way. But you also have that piece where if it becomes a problem where they're actually like they're bordering on an eating disorder or binge eating, that's where you want to bring in a therapist who specializes that or a dietitian. If that makes sense. But again, try to focus on replacement behaviors and make them aware of it. Like there's nothing wrong with having a conversation with your client that's within your scope of practice and saying, hey, I noticed that I know that you have a history of addiction. I believe that this sugar and this, your eating habits are another manifestation of that addiction. Let's be aware of that and focus on that, because I don't think that's something that people bring up. I mean, if you think about it, what do people do in rehabs? They let them smoke cigarettes too. They do terribly. Like even the one where we go, They let people gain tons and tons of weight in rehab because they're just giving them, all you're doing is replacing it with something else. And what we need to be doing is finding healthy replacement behaviors and not these types. Now, that being said, I hear a lot from people about replacing like exercise addiction. And we talked about this at the conference. Exercise addiction is very rare in people with drug and alcohol addiction. And if they do get, quote, exercise addiction, I hate to say this, but sometimes a little bit of an overuse injury is better than the alternative. Things that are going to...
An overdose, absolutely.
Yes.
100%. And we get that too. We get that a lot. Like, oh, you're cross-addicting. No, we're not. Because again, you throw in that concept of balance, right? Because we have a lot of balancing that takes place. You know, you come out and you run, you work out, you do these things, but then you're also doing the public aspect. You know, you're speaking, your community service. You're doing a lot more than that. And so I'm glad you brought that up because it's a big thing. I'm glad that you see that. I'm sure you've gotten hit with those a few times.
We get hit with it a lot, and it's actually, I would rather, and I get nervous with people talking about, oh, you're just going to give somebody an exercise addiction, because there's so many people that could be doing exercise and active things that are not going to benefit from it, because now you've just put a stigma up. Now you've just said, oh, you're just replacing addiction. People with addiction will always have addictions. Like, it's very, once you kick off that dopamine cycle, it's almost like it's there forever, and it's sort of a chronic illness that you have to manage. So looking at things that are healthier replacements. I even have one client, I got her obsessed with like organizing her house as one of her. I know that sounds ridiculous, but instead of eating sugar, we're trying to find things that we can focus on. So that's important. It's making sure that they have those replacement behaviors that are not also sugar, which lead to another set of health consequences. But yes, I absolutely love that when people.
I love what you're saying
on like exercise addiction. It's actually very rare, and it's in fact so rare you're not going to find it in the literature at all. If you go
exactly,
you're not going to find it because it doesn't happen very often.
Exactly. Well, and what I've noticed too is that when I've noticed some of my own athletes maybe putting in too much time out there on the run or whatnot, all we have to do, and again, that's a therapist doing their job by reeling that in a little bit and saying, hey, notice that you're out running when you're supposed to be home with, helping the wife or doing whatever. What's going on there? And we always find like the source of it. Well, I'm just feeling inadequate, or, I feel like I'm not appreciated. And we always are in these arguments. So really what it does is open up conversations for other things that they, should probably be looking at and working on. So I think you're right. I think they'll always have a little something that hooks us. I remember I've been clean for years, and I've been married to my wife that you met, Marissa. And I got really deep into cycling. And one day I'm out about 80 miles away from home. And she calls me. She's like, hey, how close are you? And I'm like, I'm in Nephi, which is 45 miles away from my house. And she's like, we have a wedding to go to in an hour. I'm like, I can't ride that fast. So we had to have a little conversation about hey, you need to reel this in a little bit. And what it was just a ton of stress. I thought this is a good thing for me, but it opened up dialogue. So even that kind of stuff, I see what you're saying. By no means was it an addiction. Would I rather be out biking than mowing the lawn? Absolutely. But when you have people that care about you around, you balance that stuff out. So I love the fact that you're seeing that. So my next question is, why do people with addiction histories, why do they make such amazing athletes? I'm so curious I see a lot of people, and a lot of my athletes, they've gone out and run ultra marathons and all these other things. And I have my own understanding of why they make such amazing athletes. What is your take on that?
And you're going to laugh. It goes back to what we were talking about. Once they're hooked, they're gonna go. And we do see a lot of that. Actually, a number of the people at the conference that we were at were telling me, oh yeah, I'm running the Boston Marathon, because they get into that, I hate to say it, but we do have that dopamine release from exercise. And I would say, although I hadn't used drugs and alcohol, I had a history of eating disorders and other addictive behaviors. So I know that that's why I don't drink, because if I do, I know what's going to happen. I have But I think that's why. Is because I think you can elicit a bigger level of dedication once they're fixated on that. And that's probably why they make amazing athletes.
Absolutely. And I've seen that too, especially with endurance athletes. You know, I've noticed that they have this interesting way of being able to channel the suck and the hurt. I mean, you're talking to a person that's had literally death at his doorstep and met with the devil himself. And so when you're out there on an ultra run or a marathon and mile 18, you hit that wall, you kind of know that it hurts, but it doesn't hurt anything compared to what you've already been through. And I love that concept and stuff. And so people see that kind of stuff and it freaks them out because they're like, oh, they're now searching for that. No, but they know how to cope with it. They know how to utilize it and transfer that into getting through. And so I love that. I love that you're kind of adapting and these folks into this. Is your biggest struggle though really like the clinicians themselves, or is it them giving up when they're done? What are you noticing that's like when they decide that I can skip today and I can skip tomorrow and I can skip Thursday? What happens when they start doing that? Do they ever come to you and like, hey, I've fallen off the wagon?
Yep, I had a client who was an alcoholic, and then she was out for months because sometimes it's like any other person with exercise. It sometimes becomes another thing they have to do because they leave rehab, they go home, then they've got families and jobs, and things get overwhelming. And sometimes, just like any other American, that's the first thing that goes is the exercise, even though we need to be encouraging them to maintain the habit. The problem is we need the clinicians to be supporting this while they're in rehab, and then also after, they're out in the community as an outpatient. But also we need systems where we can transition people to have coaches that are going to watch them, because yes, they will absolutely fall off the wagon. That happens all of the time because you're trying to establish a new behavior. It's just, in that respect, it really is just like anybody else. Any other person who comes in to my gym and says, oh, I want to lose weight, and then they're great for a couple months and then they fall off. So does that make sense? Yeah, and I think if we sent a stronger message in all aspects of therapy for recovery, we'd see better outcomes and we had better systems. Because that gotta have that coach, gotta have that group. Otherwise, they're not going to maintain the habit.
So then why do you think society in and of itself, why have we created this atmosphere that we do? We put that on the back burner. And you're right, it's always the first to go. I have a gym here at the facility and I'll get here and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to check my email. And then the day is gone. I'm like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. Where do we get that in our heads? Like, you're right. This has to be a priority and it's hard. But remember, it wasn't that easy to slip into addiction either. You had to work at it, right? And so I tell this to my clients all the time. I'm like, you guys don't realize that if you just flip the script, you'll be the best at whatever. Because when you wanted to get high, but you had no money, no means, no ability, at the end of the day, you still got it. So if you flip the script to that attitude, shouldn't we all be like in that mindset of like, I'll make time if it's important? How do we climb that up on the priority list?
I think we just need more consistent messaging all around. I mean, if you think about it, look at the messages we get from society. I know this sounds ridiculous, but going back to the COVID pandemic, of course, I'm a gym owner, a little biased, but fast food open, but gyms had to close. What does that tell you about where our level of importance is placed on these things? So think about the average person. 70% of our population is overweight. Why? People are told to prioritize desk jobs, sitting over moving. Moving is always the last thing that you're going to do in your day. So a lot of it is societal. But I think that if we're people in recovery are going to reap the benefits, because we know that exercise, we know that this works. This is no big secret. Tons of research out there. We need to be more firm and consistent in our messaging, that this is a piece of your therapy, just like anything else. We wouldn't tell you to skip your AA meetings. We wouldn't tell you to skip your therapy sessions. Why is it okay to skip your exercise?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, too, listeners, is what Nicole's talking about, too. It doesn't mean you've got to go in there and be a meathead. What have you noticed is like, even just like the basic, if you do this, you will begin to feel that. What do you tell the person that's like, maybe not in addiction recovery, like resource programs, but they're like, I'm going to quit drinking. Where do they begin? Because we're not asking you to go out and run a marathon, are we? Like, what's the bare minimum that's like, if you start doing this, you will feel that?
Increasing your daily step counts. That's
brilliant.
But really, like I have people like set a target for yourself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be steps. A lot of the time, it's just a marker of physical activity. So if I'm getting 4,000 steps a day sitting around, now I'm going to try to get 7,500. And not only make it a target, find a friend to do it with you. Find a walking group. There's lots and lots of walking. Any city has a walking group that you can join and go out as a group. And now you got your belonging, and then hitting that target every day is part of your self-efficacy. So it doesn't have to be,
that's funny.
I got to go lift weights. I got to go, to spin class. Though those things are helpful, finding classes that are fun where your friends are going. But even if you just start a walking program.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because that conference, we were staying kind of, like right there at the beach club resort thing. And we got literally thousands of steps. We're pushing sometimes 6 and 9 miles. I'm like, dude, what? How is this? Can we do this here? Yeah, but do we? No. I'm like, there's something to that. And we felt great at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, we were tired, but it was good. And you do that when you don't realize how much you do put in when you're kind of marching around Disney World or Disneyland and those kind of places. You can do that every day. So listeners, as simple as increasing your step count can totally work. So then with that comes this other concept of once you start doing that and you start feeling good, then continue to gradually increase. At what point do we say, hey, take the leap? And if you're going to work on your mental health, work on your physical health, because I've heard the biggest flaw people have is they're afraid to go into the gym because they don't know where to start. They don't know what to ask. What does a newbie, what does a beginner say when they walk into said gym or rec center in their communities to get going? Because if they're like me, they're like, I'm just going to go push a button on this machine and see what happens and just put my head down. And
that's where we need professionals. We need coaches that are trained. And I recommend that if you're going into a gym, I don't usually recommend people go in by themselves. Find a professional that knows how to help you. Even if you just start by attending a class, let's say you can't afford one-on-one training, I'd recommend for anybody because that's your best bet with a skilled coach. But even if you go into a YMCA, your membership should cover classes. Take a class if you're not sure what to do. You don't, and honestly, as a trainer, I've been a trainer for 7 years. My gym, you can look around in here, we don't have machines. We train 3 weights. Yeah. That's it. You don't really, unless you're a bodybuilder or have some significant mobility limitation, you really don't need all of that. Simply taking a class where you're learning how to use dumbbells is often a good place to start.
It's funny you say that because there was another presenter that was down there selling gym equipment. And I went to theirs and it was it was pretty rough. I'm not going to lie. But I'm like, we don't need expensive thousands of dollars equipment here. I mean, it's what you're saying. We really don't. I mean, those things are great and they're nice, but I'm also thinking you don't really need that. I mean, simple cardiovascular exercise and just even isometric type things can really help, right? I mean, you don't need these $1,000 Bowflex machines that you're going to start throwing your laundry on once you don't use it. We ran
a program at the rehab using dumbbells. That's it. You can make, if you look around here, even if I tilt my camera, this is all the equipment we've got. That's it.
Oh yeah. See? I love
people would absolutely and we train Olympic and power lifters here. You don't, on top of what we do. You don't, and I think it makes it so scary for people because they think oh no, I can't I don't know how to use, and machines can sometimes look very intimidating, but start with getting some steps. Get yourself a trainer, go to a group fitness class if you're not sure what to do. It doesn't have to be so big and complicated. Most of my clients, even the ones that come see me for weight loss, I tell them to hit step targets and then we train twice a week on dumbbells.
Oh man, see, that is awesome. I've talked to some folks too that are so nervous about starting because they're watching, Instagram and they're watching TikTok and they're seeing everybody that doesn't know what they're doing getting made fun of. And I'm like, okay, those are idiots, and the chances of you bumping into those kind of rare, but it's still a genuine concern. So what you're saying is start taking the class with a group of people, start doing things with a buddy, go in and approach the desk and find out, what the personal schedule trainers are, and investing in yourself. I mean, I think people have a hard time investing in themselves these days. They'll spend $1,000 on a TV or a great car or something, but when it comes to their own overhauling, their own emotional, physical, mental health, they kind of skimp. we've got to reshape our minds that way.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
And that's something we see a lot where people are like, oh, I can't afford a trainer. It's like, but you can afford to go out to dinner, or you can afford a lot of drinks. It's what you said. If it's important enough to you, you're going to make it happen. I tell people, like, exercise, like, you don't want to go brush your teeth every day. Why do you do it? You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it comes down to the messaging and also making it less scary for people.
Exactly. And when you have someone that's already experienced trauma or forms of rejection and whatnot, it can be downright like terrifying. And so that's why listeners, Nicole's talking about grab someone that you trust, jump online, see what kind of Facebook groups are open, lean into this to a point where you can start doing a little bit of research, but then it's going to take a little bit of courage, or sometimes a lot of courage, to go in there, because once you open that door to whatever gym, rec center, whatever, you're there. And that's why in our own program, I don't have our folks identify as addicts. I don't, there's no, hello, I'm Blue, I'm an addict here. It's a part of us. It's not who we are. And so you literally leave and move from addict to an athlete the moment you decide to break a sweat. And I think that kind of concept gets people really kind of engaged of, like, I don't have to be the Hulk Hogan's or the Arnold Schwarzeneggers. I can literally be me and create this on my on my terms. But you're right, Nicole. I just don't think a lot of people invest in themselves enough to say, hey, I need a little accountability. Why do you think so many people in addiction have a hard time with that? Like the accountability part, or do they? What are you noticing?
I don't notice that necessarily so part of their accountability may be more difficult than general clients, but general population, tons of accountability problems. People who have obesity and come to see us, huge accountability issues. People who just want us to follow them around all day and watch what they eat. So accountability is a big problem for all of us, not just people in recovery. That being said, it's important that a coach knows how to set proper goals for someone in recovery. We try to advise, a lot of our staff here, that if you have a personal training client, don't tell them what they're going to be doing in 6 months. You tell them what you're doing. Your goal today is to get through your session. This is what we're going to do. And I think a lot of that gets very overwhelming. Setting big goals are very overwhelming, especially for people in recovery. That can be a major, major issue. And the other piece is not investing in yourself. Well, where does a lot of this stem from? Trauma. When you're a kid, you feel like you're a worthless human being. Why would you want to invest in yourself? So there's that piece too. But having, again, a skilled coach that understands this and believes in you and is going to be there. For my clients, my coaching doesn't end when they walk out of this facility. We text all the time. Right. How's it going? Did you get your steps today? What do you need help with? And they know that they can text me anytime. And I am always reaching. If I don't hear from them for a day or two, I'm like, hey, what's going on?
What's up?
And that's something we teach in the course. Your coaching does not end when they walk out that door. It's not limited sessions that we are in person. That is a constant commitment that you're making to that client.
Yeah. I love it. So with the time we have left, run me through that program, because like I said, we have a lot of our peer support, like folks out here on Team Addict to Athlete that take our certified recovery coach training. Yours offers a glimpse into addiction recovery through being a personal trainer. What do you touch base on in that? Because I really do think that you're doing something that no one else has done when it comes to being able to bridge that gap.
So we talk a lot about the science, the course was designed for someone who is an instructor, personal trainer. You learn a lot about addiction, but what happens in the body, what the substances do. You learn a lot of that science. And we interviewed physicians, psychiatrists, a psychologist, a dietitian. So we have real professionals working on this project with us. So it's not Nicole talks about everything. We also interviewed 11 people who are in recovery, who are clients of ours, that talk about their experience in recovery, but also tie into the exercise piece. The other things it covers are nutritional deficiencies. So you learn a lot of the hard science, what exercise modifications you need to make for a physiologic basis. So why, what kinds of, and some of the stuff we talked about in the course, how do you need to modify a program for someone maybe who was using heroin, or somebody who what risks are there to somebody who was a stimulant user. So those sorts of things. Also teaches you how to design a group fitness class that's appropriate and easily modifiable. We talk about other addictive behaviors. It does teach a lot about the 12-step program, and there's a lot, and also what assessments to run, how to write a program for someone in recovery, what types of goals are appropriate to set for training. And then at the end, we cover a big piece about scope of practice and privacy. So it's sort of like you get your science, but you get a lot of what I liked about the course is we really immersed people, because most of it is video interview. It's not, the course sometimes you get on, you have to read everything. It's not. It is immersion. Yeah. It's actually watching interviews like you're watching a TV program.
I love it. That's so important, because I have my own theories about what I see the horizons of the addiction world. We owned our own residential treatment center, and then we saw the real ugly side of that. And I thought we will not be attached to this industry. It is not good. I didn't like what I saw. And we started this nonprofit, years before that. But what I'm noticing is that with how much, addiction treatment costs and all these other things, I'm noticing that more and more people are trying to do this before they have to make that leap. If they can do it with private therapy and this kind of stuff, and use these kind of people that you're training to help with these kind of things, they can create a masterful program before they shell out the big bucks if they have to go to a treatment program. And I love, Nicole, I love what you're doing. I love what we're seeing, because I think it's the grassroots level stuff like what you've got going that's really going to make the bigger difference, because people can't afford the big stuff as much as they used to, and insurance companies are tightening up. So it's like, if you guys look at some of these things that are available and you find these folks, and that's why I want to plug your program to the personal trainers I know, because we need more help like that. I think people can create a strong foundation, or they can continue their care once they're done with the residential stuff, like for forever, if they lean into it. So I love what you're doing. Final thoughts though, what do you say to that person that's like just nervous about waving the hand of I need help? I mean, like there's so many out there that are like, I just can't get over the threshold. What do you tell that person that, is a little bit apprehensive about all
the
of
exercise? Just find, this is a place for friends. This is not, we're not judging you. We're all going to let loose. These are your friends. This is your group. You belong here. You belong. So that's really what it is. And remember, we talked about this, sending them loose in a gym is not going to work. You have to have that peer support piece, or the exercise programs will fail.
I love it. Nicole, thanks for slashing some time out for us. I can't wait to probably get you on here again, because I know we're going to have lots of listeners. They're going to have questions. Social media, how do they find you? How do they find the resources that you've got? What do you've got?
Sure. So our website is fwfwellness.com. You can find our gym, and it lists sort of a lot of the other things that we do. The course is available through the MedFit Classroom. So if you Google Drug and Alcohol Recovery Fitness Specialist and MedFit, the course page will pop up, and that'll show you an outline of the course. Other than that, you can Google me, Nicole Golden, and you can find that out. Social media is FWF Wellness on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. We'll put all those in the show descriptions and on the connections, you guys. Nicole, thanks again for slicing out some time with us. Listeners, you've been well fed. Please, jump on, search out Nicole's stuff. Like I said, we were very impressed with her when we were able to participate in her conference presentation. And I really do appreciate the message you guys did deliver that day. It was good, because we needed more like that. And listeners, all you have to do is have enough courage to cross that starting line and let the rest kind of take you where it will. It'll help you eventually turn your mess into a message.